So it will lead to your giving testimony. And I'm also caught now, just as I was reading it this time, by that ending line, that by your perseverance. Long time back, Deacon Rich and I went into the jail and started a prison ministry where we go in once a week. And there's one gentleman that started about a year later, and he's been going in every week for all these years. He just keeps coming in and coming in. He's persistent as can be. And he called me Wednesday night. I was really surprised, but I thought, well, I can handle whatever. And it wasn't about the jail at all. The reason he called was because his wife had fallen the Friday before, and she was in the hospital not doing well at all, but he was just bursting over with feeling so good. The Father Plyer and Sister Marlita had been there. And he asked if I would pray for him. And I said, yeah, I'll pray. No problem. Well, I'm thinking about this, and the next day I decided, well, we better go down there. So it's down in Sheboygan. So we go to St. Nicholas Hospital, and we ask for her name, give her her name, and ask for the room number. And they say she's not there. Well, all of a sudden it dawned on me, I think there's another hospital in Sheboygan. So we Google it, and there's an Aurora Memorial down there, by the way. So we go to Aurora Memorial. We find out that she's on the 3rd floor, and she's in the ICU unit. Well, that didn't sound good. So we go up there, and as we're walking down the hall to go into the ICU unit where they got the different rooms, there's these gals walking by. We notice the fact they're crying. That's kind of strange. We come into the room, and here's my good friend, and his face just looks terrible. Wife's laying on the bed. She's on a ventilator. It turns out, he tells us, they're about to pull the ventilator. Her strict orders were if the operation didn't go well the night before, and it didn't. She was full of cancer, and some procedure didn't go well, and they were going to take the ventilator off right then. So we said some prayers. I don't know if I'm called to testify, but I did the best I could. The gals that were crying came back in, and they were their daughters, 3 of them. And they told me, we've got to leave because they are going to do this. They didn't want us present. Fine. But as I'm walking out, he asked me, he says, oh, by the way, we got the jail tonight. Can you take it for me? I said, sure. Don't worry about that. I'll take that. So it's Thursday night, and here I am in the jail with these 8 other guys in their orange suits all sitting in a small little room. And we're talking about the same readings we heard right now. But unlike here where I'm just talking at you, we kind of try to get them to talk too and to kind of get them to share. And we talked about this stubble business, but the part we talked more about was the fact that you're either an evildoer and you did something bad, and a lot of them could identify with that. They might have done something dumb. Or you're a person over here and you look at them and say, boy, that guy's not so good. Or you complain about a person, they're not so great. And all of a sudden, I become a part of the crowd. Because if I can say they're not good, it's kind of like saying, well, I'm better. Otherwise, what standard would I judge them with? I so easily can be caught between one and the other. And it seems like there's no escaping that. How many situations aren't we where people aren't happy with each other and you're one or the other? And yet, it's interesting how the one gentleman said, well, Bob, we just can't ever be negative. We got to always be positive. That's what it's got to be. I thought, well, that's a good attitude. He said, we got to look forward to something really good. I said, oh, what do you look forward to? And he said, well, once a week they let us buy from the canteen, and I buy ice cream, and I spend the rest of the week looking forward to buying the ice cream. Imagine that. We go on to the gospel, and again, I was very struck by this thing where the line where it says, this will lead to your giving testimony. Great. We'll give testimony, no problem. And he also goes on to say, and gives us even better than that. He says, I'm going to give you a wisdom so good that everybody will be powerless to argue against you. Great. Well, we're the baptized people. They were the baptized people. And I asked them, I said, well, okay, what are you going to say? What are you going to testify about? They were about as quiet as you were. They didn't know what the wisdom was. And of course, we know it, but we just don't think about it. Last night, we had an Alex Evan. And Alex Evan was going to get baptized. So as a part of the homily, I figured, well, I got to blend the homily into this baptism. How in the world would I do that? Well, let me tell you first what I told the guys in the jail. I told them a story about when I was at St. Norbert's. I was in a program, and you take all these different classes, and then you graduate and all the rest. And one of the classes was leadership. And I loved the religion classes. They were great. I really had a good time listening to them. But I did not want to go to a class on leadership. I've been in management forever. I just, oh no, please, not again. And so I go into this class with a very bad attitude. And this professor comes in the very first day of class, and he says, well, we're going to talk about leadership. And I'm ready to roll my eyes. And he says, leadership is all about the death and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. What? He said it's all about the death and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Now, he would explain it over and over in his class, and the class went for weeks, but we always heard in every class 10 times, it's about the death and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Can you help me? You got to say what it's about. Are you ready? It's about the death and the... So I'm doing this baptism last night, and I wouldn't do it, Father Dave did it. But anyway, I'm introducing this baptism, and I have to explain that we're a baptized people, and what that means is when we go under the water, and immersion is actually the right way of doing it, when you go under the water, the idea is you don't breathe, the idea is you're going into death. Okay, that's the idea. And the idea is when you come out of the water, just like when you're a kid and you came out of the water and you splash the water away from your face, and you had that feeling like you're experiencing the resurrection. Well, Alex Evan couldn't talk. I double-checked. He's only 3 months old, and he couldn't talk. But I told him, this is going to lead to you giving testimony. You're going to have to tell about this, because that's what the reading said. And all of us, we get to tell about death and resurrection. And so on Thursday night, I'm telling them about my sister. Now, let's see. I'm from a family of 10, so we got a lot of us. But when I was 33 and Janet was 36, she's out in California living an all different style. And I get a phone call. And she died of an aneurysm. And I cried. I never cried that hard before. I didn't cry much at all at that time. But you know, ever since then, I've never been far from tears. And Janet had a 4-year-old son, 3 or 4-year-old son, and we tried to get custody so we could raise him up right and everything, but he went with her significant other out in California. And every reunion, Sam would come with us, and that was nice. But this past summer, we all went out, and there's a lot of us, we all went out to Santa Rosa, California, to Sam's wedding. It was a wonderful wedding. In the midst of it, I couldn't help but feel like, you know, this is like a resurrection. And Janet's got to be smiling so big. But not all the death and the resurrections are physical dyings. I asked the guys in the jail, I said, now, how many of you have been in jail before? Because I know a lot of times when they're in the system, it's hard to get out of the system. You just get caught and you're caught again for whatever. And most of them raise their hands. And it's like, you know, the dumb thing you do, of course, you might easily, especially if you're into drugs and alcohol, which is what most of them are, you tend to do something dumb again. But I have to think about myself. I mean, I don't want to be the proud, so I got to be careful here. I have things I complain about, and I say them to others, and I drag them down, and I should not do that. I should be telling good stories and looking forward to everything as a resurrection. That's what I should do. And last week, I'll confess, perhaps Father Michael can give absolution from here. I will confess, we were doing this responsorial psalm, and I don't remember what it was, but it was like, blah, 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 the joy of the Lord. I felt no joy, okay? So I'm in about my second Mass of this, and I lean over, and Father Pliers there, and I said, I can't, that's awful. He goes, yes. He goes, but in 2 weeks. So I'm thinking about this. 2 weeks. 2 weeks. What's in 2 weeks? Uh-oh. I'll bet you those songbooks I heard are coming. I'll bet you there's going to be songs I don't know. And unlike some of you, I don't read music. I mean, I know the dots go up and down, and I go higher and lower, but I don't know what those dots mean. I don't know how fast they're going. I'm going to have to sing new songs. And I have to not complain, even though I'm not a good singer. And I've got all the old ones memorized. I really know those old ones. I have to accept this little death and this little resurrection. And I think it's a big reason why in churches they always put up the cross. Our cross, our body is just so incredible. You can see it's very realistic. If you look close, the veins of his legs are sticking out. It's because I want to skip over the cross. I want to skip over pain. I do not want to cry and hurt. I don't want to be in situations that hurt me deeply or watch people hurting. But that's what we are. We are people of the death and the resurrection. And our death and our resurrection, because we were baptized, is all connected. And our job is to do what you've already done. You said it's all about the death and the resurrection. And now as we leave Mass, we are going to be called to testify to others. We're not Jesus thumpers. We are death and resurrection thumpers. We are to tell our stories. Because Professor Tom Foss was right. It's all about the death and the resurrection of Jesus Christ.